The impossible detection fleet Admiral Cathara Voss had conquered 17 star systems before her 30th birthday and reduced 3 separate alien civilizations to grateful vassals by her 50th. Now, at 250 years old, she commanded the hegemony's outer rim fleet from the bridge of the Dominion's edge, a vessel so massive it carried its own gravitational field. In her quarter millennium of military service, she had encountered every conceivable form of resistance, deception, and tactical innovation the galaxy had to offer, which was why the readings appearing on her tactical displays made absolutely no sense whatsoever. "Sensor Chief Borlak," she called, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority across the bridge. "Explain to me why our long-range arrays are detecting a vessel that appears to be simultaneously approaching and retreating." Borlak, AI Zenthari whose species had evolved 12 independently functioning eyes specifically for multi-spectrum analysis, was currently using all of them to stare at his instruments in what could only be described as electronic bewilderment. His normally steady voice carried an uncharacteristic tremor as he responded, "Admiral, I've run 17 different diagnostic cycles. The sensors are functioning perfectly." He paused, his primary eyes swiveling to meet her gaze while his auxiliary eyes continued monitoring the displays. "The contact is exhibiting readings that violate at least 6 fundamental laws of physics. It appears to be accelerating toward us at 0.7 light speed while simultaneously moving away at 0.4 light speed. Additionally, it's broadcasting mass signatures ranging from 12 tons to negative 300,000 tons. Admiral Voss felt a familiar cold settling in her stomach. The same sensation she'd experienced just before the Battle of Kepler's Wound, when conventional tactics had nearly gotten her entire fleet destroyed. She'd learned to trust that feeling. It meant the universe was about to become significantly more complicated. "Strategic Analyst Quex," she commanded, turning to the pale, spider-like creature managing the tactical computers. "Theoretical analysis." Quex's 8 limbs danced across holographic interfaces with practiced precision. "Admiral, our combat computers are experiencing what can only be described as a mathematical nervous breakdown. The approaching vessel registers as 17 different ship classifications simultaneously, including several that exist only in theoretical models, and one that our databases identify as conceptually impossible. Define conceptually impossible. According to our analysis, the vessel appears to be a 3-kilometer-long manifestation of Murphy's Law, with engines attached. Admiral Voss had commanded fleets that could sterilize planets. She had negotiated the surrender of empires and watched the birth of new stars from the command decks of ships that could crack moons in half. The idea that some upstart species had managed to build something that her instruments couldn't even properly classify was professionally offensive. Origin? The signature originates from the Human Colonial Expansion Zone, Sector 7G. Humans. The word emerged from her lips like a curse. Of all the species the hegemony had catalogued for eventual absorption, humans ranked somewhere between mildly amusing and potential research subjects. They had barely achieved faster-than-light travel, and their largest vessels were smaller than her flagship's shuttle bays. Their technology was crude, their military organization was chaotic, and their diplomatic protocols seemed to consist primarily of making jokes at inappropriate moments. Time to intercept? Borlak's eyes performed what could only be described as a mathematical shrug. "According to our calculations, the vessel will arrive in either 47 minutes, 3 hours, or last Tuesday. Possibly all 3. The bridge fell silent except for the increasingly agitated beeping of various sensor arrays attempting to process data that apparently existed in several dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Voss had built her career on understanding her enemies, their psychology, their technology, their limitations. But this was like trying to solve an equation where the numbers kept changing into philosophical concepts. "Admiral," Borlak's voice cracked with strain, "the contact is attempting communication. Standard imperial frequencies, but also other things." "Other things?" "The signal appears to be transmitted through interpretive dance, mathematical poetry, and what our translation matrix identifies as aggressive optimism." On screen. The main view screen shimmered to life, displaying what appeared to be the bridge of a vessel that looked like someone had asked a child to design a spaceship, while explaining engineering very poorly. Curved surfaces flowed into each other with organic randomness. Control panels seemed to be organized according to principles known only to their creators, and everything was colored in shades that made her eyes water slightly. The human who appeared on screen was a woman with auburn hair pulled back in a style that managed to look both professional and like she'd recently survived an explosion. Her uniform bore captain's insignia and seemed to have been designed by someone who thought military regulations were more of a loose guideline. Her smile suggested she knew exactly how much chaos she was causing and was thoroughly enjoying it. "Greetings, Hegemony Fleet," the human said, her voice carrying a distinctly cheerful tone that made Admiral Voss's tactical instincts scream warnings. "I'm Captain Juno Rivers of the UES Paradox Runner. Sorry about the sensor readings, we know they get a bit wonky around our probability drives. Hope we didn't interrupt anything important." Admiral Voss found her voice after a moment that felt like geological time. "Captain Rivers, you are in violation of hegemony space. Your vessel appears to be..." "What exactly is your vessel?" "Oh, that's the fun part." Rivers' grin widened in a way that suggested the universe was about to become significantly more interesting. "We exist in a state of controlled uncertainty until directly observed, which means we're simultaneously a heavy cruiser, a research ship, a diplomatic vessel, and occasionally a very large coffee shop. The coffee shop thing only happens on Thursdays, though." A new figure stepped into the frame, a gangly human male wearing what appeared to be a laboratory coat covered in equations that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. His hair defied several laws of physics on its own, and his eyes held the particular gleam of someone who had looked too deeply into the mathematical underpinnings of reality and decided to renovate. "Dr. Marcus Webb," he introduced himself with a wave that somehow managed to encompass multiple dimensions. "Chief of Impossible Engineering. Your targeting systems are probably having a bit of trouble with us right now. That's because you're thinking about it wrong." "Thinking about what? Wrong?" Admiral Voss asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. "Physics," Webb said with the enthusiasm of someone explaining their favorite hobby. "See, your species spent so much time making the universe predictable that you forgot it was supposed to be weird. We embraced the weirdness. Turns out reality is way more flexible when you stop insisting it behave logically." Strategic analyst Quex leaned toward Admiral Voss, his whisper carrying clearly in the suddenly quiet bridge. "Admiral, our weapon systems are attempting to achieve target locks on 37 different positions simultaneously. Our tactical computers appear to be developing what can only be described as existential anxiety. That's because you're trying to collapse our wave function," came another voice from the human ship. "But we've learned to surf the probability waves instead of fighting them. It's all about strategic uncertainty, being definitely indefinite about our definite indefiniteness." "Admiral," Voss felt something fundamental crack in her worldview. In 2.5 centuries of military service, she had encountered species that breathed methane, civilizations that existed partially in hyperspace, and empires that had transcended physical form entirely. But none of them had ever made her question the basic mathematical principles underlying reality itself. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "that you've built a warship that operates on... what? Wishful thinking?" "More like weaponized chaos theory," Captain Rivers replied cheerfully. "See, your empire spent millennia perfecting the art of being right. You've got equations for everything, mathematical certainty, technological superiority based on understanding. Exactly how things work, it's very impressive." "Thank you," Admiral Voss said automatically, then caught herself. "But here's the thing," Rivers continued, her smile taking on an edge that made the Admiral's survival instincts sit up and take notice. "What happens when you encounter something that's professionally wrong, something that shouldn't work but does anyway? Something that operates on the principle that if Murphy's Law says it can go wrong, why not weaponize it instead?" The human ship chose that moment to demonstrate. Without any visible change in position or energy output, it was suddenly occupying 7 different locations simultaneously, while somehow also being exactly where it had been the entire time. Admiral Voss's tactical displays began making sounds she'd never heard before. electronic whimpering that suggested her instruments were having some kind of mechanical breakdown. "Red alert," she commanded, her voice cutting through the bridges. Stunned silence. "All ships to battle stations. And someone get me a direct line to High Command. They're going to want to hear about this." As klaxons wailed throughout the fleet, Admiral Voss stared at the impossible readings and tried to ignore the growing certainty that her quarter-millennium of tactical experience might not be enough for whatever humanity had decided to unleash upon the galaxy. The humans, it seemed, had learned to build ships that shouldn't exist, and they were here to prove it. The paradigm shift. The Dominion's edge shuddered as Admiral Voss's reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, 12 heavy cruisers, 47 destroyers, and the pride of the hegemony fleet, the dreadnought inevitable conclusion. Each vessel represented the culmination of millennia of military engineering, their hulls gleaming with the kind of technological perfection that had subjugated half the galaxy. Commander Pyth, Voss's second-in-command, materialized beside her, command chair, with the precise movements of a career military officer. His scaled features carried the satisfied expression of someone who believed overwhelming force solved most problems. "Admiral, Battle Group Sigma has arrived. Combined firepower sufficient to crack a small moon. Shall we demonstrate proper Imperial diplomacy?" Before Voss could respond, the human ship chose that moment to showcase exactly why conventional tactics might prove inadequate. The Paradox runner flickered like a bad hologram, then was suddenly present in 17 different locations simultaneously, each one solid enough to register on sensors, each one apparently capable of independent action. "Fascinating," came a new voice from the human vessel. A woman with short black hair and grease-stained coveralls stepped into frame, carrying what appeared to be a wrench that was somehow rotating in 4 dimensions. "Your fleet's beautiful, Admiral. Very definite. I'm Chief Engineer Zoe Nakamura, and I have to say your ships are exactly where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're designed to do. Must be nice having that kind of certainty." "Unlike some vessels I could mention," Commander Pyth muttered, his tactical displays showing targeting solutions that changed faster than his computers could calculate them. "Oh, you mean our Murphy's Law Drive?" Nakamura grinned, tapping her impossible wrench against her palm. "See? Most species try to eliminate variables. They want their ships to work the same way every time, in every situation. Very logical. Very predictable. Very fragile." Dr. Webb reappeared beside her, now wearing safety goggles that seemed to be filtering light from several dimensions simultaneously. "We took the opposite approach. Instead of fighting entropy, we hired it as a consultant. Our ships are designed to malfunction in precisely the right ways at exactly the right moments." Admiral Voss felt her headache intensifying. "You're telling me your technology is based on deliberate mechanical failure?" "Not failure," Captain Rivers corrected, her cheerful demeanor unchanged despite being surrounded by enough firepower to sterilize continents. "Creative reinterpretation of specifications? Our engineers don't ask, 'Will this work?' They ask, 'What interesting ways can this go wrong, and how can we exploit them?'" The bridge of the Dominion's edge fell silent as every officer present tried to process the implications of technology based on systematic unreliability. Commander Pyth broke the silence with the kind of laugh that suggested his worldview was cracking. "This is absurd. Admiral, request permission to demonstrate the superiority of properly engineered systems." "Granted," Voss said grimly. "All ships, target the primary contact. Fire when ready." What happened next would be discussed in Imperial tactical academies for decades. The combined firepower of Battle Group Sigma, enough destructive force to vaporize small asteroids, converged on the Paradox runner's position with mathematical precision. The energy beams and projectiles struck their target exactly as calculated, achieving perfect tactical execution. They had no effect whatsoever. "Ah," Dr. Webb said, adjusting his impossible goggles. "You've just encountered our Heisenberg compensators. Lovely little devices. They ensure that the more accurately you know where we are, the less accurately you can know what we're doing, or vice versa. sometimes both simultaneously, which gets a bit confusing but makes for excellent defensive capabilities. The human ship, all 17 versions of it, shimmered and consolidated into a single vessel that was now somehow occupying the exact space where several Imperial destroyers had been moments before. The destroyers, rather than being destroyed or displaced, were now existing in a parallel probability state that made Sensor Chief Borlak's eyes cross in mathematical distress. "How?" Commander Pith whispered, staring at tactical displays that were attempting to map impossible geometry. "Simple," Nakamura replied, her wrench now apparently fixing something in the fabric of space-time itself. "Your ships are designed to exist in one specific reality. Ours are designed to exist in whichever reality is most convenient at the moment. When you fired, we simply shifted to a probability state where your weapons missed. Your destroyers got caught in the transition. Don't worry, they'll be fine. Probably. Maybe. The uncertainty principle is still calculating." A new voice cut through the confusion, cold, precise, and carrying the kind of authority that made star systems tremble. "This has gone far enough." The view screen split to show an additional figure materializing in a cascade of dark energy. High Inquisitor Zerion, one of the hegemony's most feared officials, stood in what appeared to be a mobile command chamber that existed partially outside normal space. His appearance meant the situation had escalated far beyond a simple first contact scenario. High Inquisitor, Admiral Voss acknowledged, feeling a familiar chill. Zerion's presence meant the Empire was taking this seriously enough to deploy reality warping technology. "Admiral Voss, stand down your fleet. I will handle this anomaly personally." Zerion's gaze shifted to the human ship, and space itself seemed to darken around his image. "Human vessel, you are in violation of natural law. Your existence contradicts the fundamental order of the universe. Correct this immediately." Captain Rivers tilted her head with the expression of someone encountering an interesting puzzle. "Natural law, according to whom? Your species has been working under the assumption that the universe is a machine with fixed rules. We've discovered it's more like an improvisational jazz ensemble, lots of structure, but the best parts happen when you let chaos take the lead." "Impossible," Zerion stated flatly. "Order is the foundation of all existence. Chaos leads only to destruction." "Does it?" Dr. Webb stepped forward, his equations now glowing with their own light. "Inquisitor, your empire has conquered thousands of worlds by imposing order through force. Very efficient. But tell me, how do you conquer something that refuses to be conquered because it's too busy not existing in the way you expect it?" "Two?" The Paradox Runner chose that moment to demonstrate. Without warning, it was suddenly everywhere, not just in multiple locations but in multiple realities. The ship appeared to be engaging in 17 different battles simultaneously, each one taking place in a slightly different version of the same space. In one reality, it was a massive dreadnought overwhelming Imperial forces through sheer firepower. In another, it was a tiny scout ship that was somehow winning through speed and cunning. In a third, it appeared to be a floating garden that was defeating enemy vessels by growing flowers at them with aggressive enthusiasm. "Your targeting systems are designed to track single-state objects," Nakamura explained, her voice coming from all 17 realities simultaneously. "But we exist in quantum superposition until we choose to collapse into a specific state. And we choose based on what's most tactically advantageous at any given moment." High Inquisitor Zerion's chamber began emanating the kind of energy that typically preceded the complete reorganization of local spacetime. "Enough. I will impose order on this chaos directly." What happened next challenged every observer's understanding of physics. Zerion unleashed power that could have rewritten the fundamental constants of reality in the local area. The kind of reality warping force that the hegemony reserved for dealing with threats to existence itself. The wave of ordering energy swept toward the human ship with the inevitability of a mathematical proof. The Paradox Runner absorbed it like a sponge. "Oh, that's lovely," Dr. Webb said, apparently delighted. "High-grade ordering energy. We'll have to send you a thank you. Note: our entropy amplifiers just got a fantastic power boost." The human ship began to change. Where before it had been confusing, now it became actively impossible. It was simultaneously larger and smaller than itself, moving in directions that didn't exist, and broadcasting signals that appeared to be coming from next Tuesday. You see? Captain Rivers explained, her smile now carrying the edge of someone who had just revealed their trump card. Your empire's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. You've become so dependent on order, so committed to making everything predictable that you've forgotten how to deal with genuine chaos. We haven't. We've weaponized it. The Imperial fleet's instruments began failing en masse as the Paradox runner radiated waves of controlled uncertainty. Ships that had operated flawlessly for centuries suddenly found their targeting systems trying to lock onto their own shadows, their navigation computers attempting to plot courses through dimensions that mathematics insisted didn't exist, and their communication arrays receiving messages from versions of themselves that had never been built. Admiral Voss watched her century-old tactical experience become useless in real time. Every strategy she could conceive required predictable physics, logical cause and effect, and enemies that behaved according to comprehensible rules. The humans had somehow built a vessel that operated on the principle that rules were optional. "High Inquisitor," she said quietly. "I believe we may have encountered something beyond our current strategic paradigm." Xarian's image flickered with barely contained frustration. "Impossible. The hegemony has contingencies for every conceivable threat." "That's the problem," Captain Rivers said, her cheerful tone somehow more menacing than any threat. "We're not conceivable. We're what happens when a species decides that impossible is just another engineering challenge to overcome." The Paradox. Runner began to fade, not retreating but transitioning to a probability state that made it simultaneously present and absent. "This has been fun," Rivers continued, "but we have other appointments, other realities to visit, other impossibilities to explore. Do give our regards to your Emperor, won't you? Tell him humanity says hello." "Wait," Admiral Voss called out, her tactical mind finally grasping the implications. "If you can build one ship like this?" "Oh, Admiral," Dr. Webb's laughter echoed, across probability space. "You don't think we'd come to introduce ourselves with just one ship, do you? The Paradox Runner is our diplomatic vessel. You should see what we built for actual combat." The human ship vanished, leaving behind only the lingering echo of impossibility and the growing certainty that the balance of galactic power had just shifted in ways no one had thought to calculate. In the silence that followed, Admiral Voss found herself staring at instrument readings that insisted nothing had happened, while every instinct screamed that everything had changed. Humanity, it seemed, had not just joined the galactic community. They had rewritten the rules of membership entirely, and they were just getting started.